Okay, and let us finish this, the 10th chapter of, well, hopefully finish. There is a little ways to go. Let's finish this 10th chapter of the Darkangel. We've had a battle with some specter jackals, of which only two are real. They are the dogs of the White Witch. Ariel has figured out the correct one, and we'll backtrack just a little bit to make sure we get all of that in there. Stop! The jackal growled at her. He crouched, shoulders hunched. No laughter thickened his voice now. Abruptly, the noise of the others ceased. Their images vanished. Ariel was dimly aware in the sudden stillness that the false bracts around the Penderlawn had also vanished. Enough! The jackal crouching before her snarled. You recognize I am the one? Very well. I shall stop toying with you. Even without my spectres, I can kill you. Do you really think that stick would stop me? The Penderlawn will soon finish your mate, panted Ariel. Despite the other's surly confidence, she felt flushed and dangerous. Do you think you could stand against him? I said enough, the jackal snarled. I do not intend to stand against him. I intend to kill you and run. Have done with this game and save yourself death. Hand over to me the star horse's hoof. Ariel stared at him, startled. Was it the star hoof they truly sought, not her? She felt a brief rush of gratification flit through her to realize perhaps she had done right in taking the hoof, interpreted the rhyme and the little mage's hurried instructions correctly after all. She blinked once to clear her thoughts and searched her mind for cunning. And what if I had this thing you ask for? She started, trying for a tone of confidence, even scorn. She was winded. She needed rest. What would you do with it? There is no if, the jackal barked. The lion took you to the horse. So much we can guess. What other reason than to have its hoof? I and my fellow servants have been scouring these dunes a dozen years to find it. But why? Demanded Ariel, stalling. Would the lion never come? From one corner of her eye she caught sight of him now, halfway down the slope, almost caught up to the limping fleeing brack. Our mistress requires it, the dog jackal snapped, baring fang. Ask no more. Hand it to me. Ariel shook her head slowly, held tight her walking stick, her muscles tensed, eyes on the jackal, but she made her face and voice all ignorance. I do not have it, she replied. This robe has no pockets. She raised her arm slightly to show him. Did you think I might secrete anything upon my person? The jackal cocked his head, eyed her with red suspicion. Ariel dropped her arms. I brought back nothing of the star horse. He was dead. Liar! Spat the jackal. You have it. You must somewhere upon you. That pouch. Ariel lifted the black velvet bag, still slung from a thong about her neck, prayed for the lion to come. She wrung the limp bag in one hand. It holds nothing. In the background she heard the death cry of the brack in the lion's jaws. Liar! The witch dog growled again, his muscles bunching, his eyes upon the pouch. More likely charmed and only empty seeming. He sprang so suddenly Ariel was taken by surprise. Snatching the bag in his teeth from her hand, he knocked her back. She cried out, used her staff to ward him off. Falling, she felt the thong break from about her neck. The hard sand knocked the breath from her. The jackal came down upon her. For one instant, his red carbuncle eyes glared at her. His hot, foul breath scathed her cheek. Then she heard the lion's roar, and the jackal sprang away. She scrambled to her knees, saw all in an instant. The witch dog already 2 bounds down slope, the Penderlawn crouching over the fallen brack. A long wound was torn along his left leg and shoulder. She had not seen that slash before. His stance during the fight had hidden it. The jackal fled. Penderlawn, stop him! Ariel cried. He has the pouch, but... She realized, even as she heard herself speaking, that with such a wound, even the Liasol could never have caught him. The great cat staggered to his feet, lurched half a pace toward her. Ariel! he called, but his voice seemed oddly weak and strained. "Ariel, your staff!" But Ariel's thoughts were already ahead of his words. Scrambling up from her knees, she snatched at her staff, lying where she had dropped it when she fell. Just out of reach, it slipped beneath her fingertips, sifted further into the coarse, slippery sand. Ariel lunged for the stick, caught it up, whirled. She saw the pale, dark-spotted jackal, pouch in teeth, now halfway to the foot of the slope. Gauging the distance in an instant, she knew were she to wait even a half-second more, he would be beyond her range and away. Ariel gathered herself, without a pause, striving to recall everything Oro Otto II had taught her. She flexed her arm and cocked her wrist, took 2 half-running strides, and threw. The knotted staff arched, sailed like a javelin, point first. Reaching its zenith, it hung for a moment against the black, starlit sky. Then it plunged, dropped. Ariel, standing, halted, panting on the hill crest, saw the jackal, unaware of the danger overhead, sprinting down the pale orange dune-side, straight for the point where the staff would come to earth. The thrown stick fell just before it hit home. Ariel's wrist flicks as she had launched it, caught up with the shaft, snapped it around so the great knob of its head struck the dog's skull like a stone. Ariel saw the jackal somersault, the black pouch fly from his teeth, and heard no cry. A great splash of sand flew up as the jackal landed, rolled limply a few paces to the slope's foot, and lay still. "Well done, daughter," she heard the lion's cry, dimly above the harshness of her own breathing and the pounding of her heart. "Well done." Ariel half ran, half waded down the brittle-crusted sliding slope, then to retrieve the Darrow's velvet bag and her walking stick. The jackal was dead. As Ariel knelt in the sand beside him, she saw his eyes were clear now, colorless as glass and no longer red. The whiteness of his pelt, too, was losing its lambents. The once depthless black of its rosette spots had dulled, looked flat and dusty now, her pulse and breathing quieted. Ariel lifted the velvet pouch and brushed the sand grains from it, reached her hand inside to be sure that the equestrial's hoof was still within and unharmed. It was. Ariel felt its cool, smooth, uneven solidity against her fingertips. She reknotted the broken thong and slipped it once more about her neck. Retrieving her walking stick, she rose, turned away from the dead jackal, and started back up the slope. The Penderlawn reclined upon the sand, facing away from Ariel. The dead brack lay nearby him, her eyes, like her mate's, also gone colorless. Her spotted coat likewise lost the gleam of its whiteness and the depth of its shadows. But as Ariel drew near the reclining sunline, she noticed another thing. His coat, too, had faded. Its fiery radiance was weaker. His fallow mane no longer fiercely glowed. His own pelt, the brack beside him, and the sand were all spattered with bright golden blood. Ariel stared a moment in utter astonishment, then ran to him. Falling to her knees beside him, she found him barely able to raise his cheek from the sand. "Penderlawn!" she cried, taking his great shaggy head into her lap. "Penderlawn, you're sorely hurt." "No, daughter," he scoffed faintly. "A little, only a little." "What may I do for you?" she exclaimed, reaching to press his wounded shoulder, in effect to staunch the blood that oozed there. But in the next instant she had caught her hand back with a cry. The long, golden slash was hot as burning butter. "No, do not touch my shoulder, child," the Liasol told her. "Our bodies, the bodies of the lions, are not like yours. We are made of fearsome, more volatile stuff." His voice faded to a whisper. He drew breath. "But do not fear." "I do not. Or I do, though," Ariel told him, stroking his paled silk mane with her free hand. Her chest was tight, her voice trembled. "Lion, I do fear." He smiled faintly, seemed to gather himself from deep in his throat. She almost thought she heard a purr. "Do not. I will be well enough before sun reaches noon next day month." Ravenna gave her wardens power to heal themselves at need. "But how may I aid you?" she whispered, already reaching for the pouch at her throat. "Do you require food?" He shook his head. "No, but I require rest." He closed his eyes a moment, as though too weary to continue. Ariel felt her own helplessness knotting like a fist about her throat. "But what may I do?" she cried softly. "Tell!" He opened his eyes then, and she saw that their golden fire at least remained undim. It gave her courage. "Look to yourself," he told her. "First, your arm is wounded. Salve a little of my blood upon it. It will help it heal." Ariel shook her head and made to protest. How could she tend her own scratches when he lay so hurt? But the lion's eyes compelled her. Slowly, reluctantly, she spread a little of the hot substance from her hand along the long, shallow slash on her forearm. The golden stuff first burned, then tingled with a soothing warmth. "Lion," Ariel started. But again the great cat shook his head. "Daughter," he interrupted, "surely you can see. I cannot bear you any farther, toward the desert's edge. This wound of mine will mend in time, but I must lie here long hours, in the light of Soul Star drawing strength from it before I am sound again.